Have you ever been deep into a game and just stopped and thought, how in the world did they make this? It can feel like some kind of complex magic. Well, today we're going to pull that curtain all the way back. We're going to peek at the essential building blocks, the core Unity tools you'd need to create a really dynamic 2D snowboarding game from scratch. Let's get into it. So this is the goal. I love this quote because it's not technical at all. It's about a feeling. We're not just trying to move a character across the screen. We're trying to build something that feels, well, flippy, spinny, and jumpy. We want that rush of catching air, the style, the energy. This right here, this is our North Star for every single tool and concept we're going to talk about today.
Okay, so that's the big question, right? How do you take a vibe, that flippy, spinny, jumpy idea, and turn it into something you can actually play? Well, it's not just one magic button. It's actually a whole toolkit of different things, each one designed to solve a very specific problem. We need to sculpt the world, we need to program how you interact with it, and then we need to add all that visual polish that really makes it pop. So what's actually in that toolkit? Let's find out.
First things first, if you're gonna have a snowboarding game, you need a mountain to ride on. But here's the thing, it can't just be any old mountain. The entire feel of the game, that flowy feeling, it all starts with the terrain. You just can't get that smooth carving sensation on a world that's made of clunky, sharp-edged blocks. So our very first job is to figure out how to build a world that feels natural and, most importantly, is actually fun to ride.
I mean, just picture it for a second. Imagine trying to snowboard down a giant staircase. It would be awful, right? All these jarring stops and unnatural angles. Snowboarding is all about smooth curves, finding a line and using the shape of the hill to build up speed. A blocky world completely fights against that. So this is problem number one. We have to solve this level geometry issue before we can even begin to think about the cool tricks and jumps.
And this is our solution. It's an incredible tool inside of Unity called Sprite Shapes. Now, instead of placing individual square tiles over and over again like digital Legos, Sprite Shapes let you just draw the contour of your world. You place points, you drag the handles to create these beautiful Bezier curves, and you literally sculpt your hills and valleys. The digital clay analogy is honestly perfect. It frees you from the grid and lets you create something that feels truly organic. Plus, and this is a neat little bonus, it's often way more efficient for the game's memory than using thousands of separate tile sprites.
Okay, so we've used our sprite shapes, and now we've got this gorgeous, flowing landscape on the screen. It looks perfect. But there's a pretty big problem. Right now, it's just a visual. It's just a picture. If we were to drop our snowboarder into the game, they'd fall right through it like a ghost. The visual part is there, but the physical part, the part that actually makes it solid ground, is completely missing. So how do we fix that? The answer is something called an edge collider. This thing is the unsung hero of our terrain. It's a component you add to your sprite shape, and what it does is automatically trace that beautiful curve you just made and creates an invisible, razor-thin physical wall along it. You can think of it like an invisible force field that perfectly matches the shape of your hill. So now, when the snowboarder's physics object touches it, the game engine knows, hey, this is solid ground. And just like that, our pretty picture becomes a real solid mountain.
All right, this is a huge step. Our snowboarder can now actually ride down the hill we sculpted. But let's be honest, just riding down a predictable hill will get boring pretty fast. The really great games, the ones we remember, have levels that surprise you, that interact with you. So the next step is all about adding dynamic, interactive elements into the world itself. So this is our next big design challenge. Right now, our world is totally passive. The player does things, and the world just kind of sits there. To get that flippy, spinny, jumpy feeling, the world needs to push back sometimes. We need things like speed boosts, ramps that launch you, or maybe even patches of ice that make you slide differently. The question is, how do we build these kinds of interactive zones right into our level?
And this is the tool for that job, effectors. I absolutely love this simple way the source material puts it. They're the cool things that push along other game objects. And that is exactly right. An effector is a special component you can add to an object in your world, and it creates an invisible zone that applies a physical force to anything that passes through it. This is how you make those speed boost pads, trampolines, conveyor belts, or even gusts of wind.
So let's just walk through exactly how this works, because it's so simple and so powerful. First, your player character cruises into the invisible trigger area of an effector. The moment they enter, step 2, the effector kicks in and applies its force.
Maybe it's a huge push forward or a sharp force straight up. And finally, step 3, the player's physics body reacts instantly. All of a sudden, you're blasting down the hill at double speed, or you're flying through the air, perfectly set up for an amazing trick. It's how you design for those moments of surprise and delight. Okay, so we've got a world that looks great, and now it has interactive elements that make it fun to play. The mechanics are really coming together. But games are more than just mechanics. They're an experience. Right now, when our player lands a big jump, it just happens. There's no spectacle, no feedback. It doesn't feel impactful. So the next step is all about adding that visual spice, the little details that make every action feel satisfying. This is one of those things that can be hard to describe, but you know it when you feel it. It's often called game feel or juice. You can have perfectly coded controls in physics, but if the game doesn't visually celebrate what you're doing, it just feels empty. When you land a massive jump, your brain expects some kind of confirmation, some kind of visual impact. We need to give the player that feedback. So how do we create that impact? The number one tool in our box for this is the particle effect system. This system is basically an engine for spawning and controlling tons, sometimes thousands of tiny little images on the screen all at once. By tweaking things like their speed, their size, their color over time, you can simulate almost anything. Explosions, smoke, magic spells, and of course for our game, snow. And here's where we use them to bring the world to life. Just imagine it. You soar through the air after hitting a ramp, and when you land, there's this big poof of snow that kicks up. That's a particle effect, and it feels so good. Or maybe you make a really sharp turn and you see a spray of powder carving out behind you. Particle effect. You grind a metal rail and see sparks flying everywhere. Particle effect. You grab a power-up and your character starts to glow with this cool energy. You guessed it, also a particle effect. These aren't just little decorations. They're vital communication to the player that says, hey, what you just did was awesome. So, we've looked at 3 pretty different sets of tools. We have tools for sculpting the world, tools for making the world push you around, and tools for adding all the visual sparkle. But what's the glue that holds it all together? What's the master system that makes sure the snowboarder actually slides on the collider, gets launched by the effector, and triggers that particle effect when they land? There's this hidden layer running underneath everything we've built so far. It's a fundamental set of rules that governs every single interaction in our game world. It's the engine that's running the whole simulation, the director of the entire show. This secret ingredient is what makes everything we've designed feel like a cohesive, believable world. And that secret ingredient is Unity's built-in physics system. This is the master controller. It's the thing that's constantly applying gravity to our player, which is what makes them slide down the hill in the first place. It's what's detecting the collision between the player's board and that invisible edge collider, stopping them from falling through the world, and it's what takes that force from our effector and actually applies it to the player to change their speed. It is the invisible framework that makes all our other tools actually work together. And that's really the big takeaway here. Building a great game isn't about just being an expert in one single tool. It's about understanding how to weave all of these different systems together. You have the beautiful curve from the sprite shape, which is made solid by the edge collider, which is made exciting by the effector, and is made satisfying by the particle effect, and it's all managed by the physics system. That interplay, that synergy between all the parts, that's where that magical game feel really comes from. And that really brings us full circle. We've seen how these separate tools for world building, for physics, and for visual effects all combine to create one cohesive experience. And when you think about it, these aren't just the building blocks for a snowboarding game, are they? They're the building blocks for almost any game you can imagine. So I'll leave you with this to think about. If you had this exact toolkit right now, what would you build? What is the one core feeling, speed, mystery, chaos, maybe even calm, that you would want to create for your player? The possibilities, as you can see, are pretty much endless.